Hi guys, my name is Raven Wilson and I'm one of the naturalists here at Harris County Precinct One, Commissioner Rodney Ellis's office. Today we're going to be doing a video on a terrestrial ecosystem, and we're going to be learning about all the different things that you need within your ecosystem. Before we get started on that, I'm going to tell you a little bit of background information about what it is to be an ecosystem and about what it is to be a biosphere. So, an ecosystem is just a group of living things and non-living things that are put together. So sometimes you may hear people say the word biotic, and if you're biotic, that means that you're living, like you, me, plants, and animals. If you hear the word abiotic, then that means it's something that is non-living. So like rocks, soil, the sun, those are going to be examples. So again, if you have an ecosystem, that means you're going to have a group of living things and a group of non-living things together. All right? So one of the biggest biospheres that we have is the Earth. A biosphere is something that is a closed, self-regulating system. So that means that we have this Earth, right? And then we have lots of different ecosystems, and that makes a biosphere. So one of the things that's pretty amazing about this is that we can have all the things that we need in this world if we take care of it correctly, and we'll have everything that we need in order to survive. So an example of that is a group of researchers who got together, and between 1987 and 1991, they built their own self-regulating biosphere. So one of the biospheres, what they did was they made up a whole bunch of habitats and they put them together. So they had an ocean, they had a rainforest, they had a desert, they had a savanna, and they also had a forest. And they put all of those different ecosystems together in a little closed habitat that they built 3.14 acres. And the amazing thing about this is that those 8 scientists decided to live in that biosphere for 2 years. They did not come out for 2 years, and they had everything that they needed in order to survive. So that just shows you, if we learn how to take care of our planet and the earth that we should, we would be able to take care of ourselves, right? And so what we're gonna do is we're kind of gonna go through this little activity, but first, I want to tell you about 2 other types of ecosystems that you can do just in case you want to try it out. So what is called a gerarium is just another type of ecosystem that you can do in a jar, but it means that it is going to be underwater. So typically people are either going to use salt water or they're going to use fresh water in order to do their gerarium. And so the last type of ecosystem I want to tell you about is called a palladium. Now, if you have a palladium, that means you're going to have land and you're going to have water within your ecosystem. So those are some other types that you can try out, and you can look up the information for it if you want to give it a go. Again, today we're going to be doing terrestrial. So that means we're going to be doing one that is open, and then we're also going to be doing one that is closed. So before we can get started on our terrestrial ecosystem, I'm going to go over all the things that you will need in order to make the perfect one. So one of the first things that you're going to need is your container. So some people use a jar, some people go out and get a little plastic container like this, but you can typically find things like this at your hardware store. You're also going to need some pebbles. And so these are some different types of pebbles that I went to pick up. I also got some different types of rocks just for decoration. You're going to need some type of moss. And so this moss that I picked up is Spanish moss. You're going to need your dirt or your soil. And so this is the type of soil that I went and got. Something else that you'll need is called activated charcoal. So this is kind of like the jar that it comes in, and you can find activated charcoal at your pet stores. They'll sell it. All you have to do is ask for it. I also got some little sticks just for decoration, and it has some type of moss on it. I also got water just to show you. So watering, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's going to be different for your closed terrarium and for your open terrarium. Also, if you have a medicine dropper or even a spoon will work. Because these things can't get too much water, this is a way that you can water your plants without making it too much for them. And then lastly, you're going to need your plants. And so again, it's different for closed and open, but you can definitely look it up and figure out which plants will be the best for you to get. And then that's all you'll need. So sometimes people will put, extra things in there for decoration, and whichever way you want to do it to make it your own is going to be good. Okay, so now that we got all of the things that you will need in order to make your terrarium, let's go ahead and start making our closed terrarium. And one of the things that you're going to start off with is going to be your activated charcoal. So you're just going to put a little layer to cover the bottom. And so this just kind of helps to filter the terrarium and keep it a little bit clean. I'm going to put a little more. And again, you can get activated charcoal at any of the pet stores. After that, you're going to get your rocks. And so the rocks also help to act as a filter. And you're going to layer it right on top of the charcoal. And so when I say it's acting as a filter, when you are watering your plants, you want to make sure that you don't do too much. And so this is a way that kind of helps to keep the water at the bottom away from touching the actual roots so they don't get too much water. And you can use gravel, aquarium gravel. You can use different type of rocks like I have. After you do your rocks, then you are going to do your soil. And so I'm going to use two different types of soil here. And you want to make sure that your soil is about 2 to 4 inches above the rocks. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little bit more of some different type of soil. And this one actually has different types of plant food in it. Okay, let's make that even. And you can see the little green things. That's different types of food, because plants eat food just like we do. Now, after you do your soil layer, then you can kind of get snazzy and do some decorations. So for me, I showed you the moss. That's kind of what I'm going to put as my top layer. Okay, so we have some moss. Just make it a little nice. And again, this is some Spanish moss that I have, but they also have different types of moss that you can get at pet stores. All right. So if you have something that you love, maybe like it's a little small, tiny statue that can go in there, you can add that as well. And so after you get finished doing all these layers, again, you're going to have your charcoal, you're going to have your rocks, you're going to have your soil, and then you're going to have your moss on top. Then it's time to do your plants. So the plant that I chose for my closed terrarium is going to be a fern. So there's different types of ferns, and pretty much all of them are going to be pretty good for doing a closed terrarium because they can have high humidity. And so with our terrarium being closed, it will definitely have some type of humidity in there. And so what you want to do, you can see the roots that are at the bottom. You want to make sure that those roots are in the soil. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a hole there. Then I am going to put my roots down. And so obviously this is a pretty big fern, right? And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to cut it a little bit so I'll still be able to put my top on, because again, this one is going to be our closed terrarium. So let me do that. All right, so now just because I am me, I went and got some little decorations to go in there. And as well as I actually went out and bought a Venus flytrap. And then I also went out and got a pitcher plant. So you can look at the seeds that I have in my hand. Again, you're just going to make sure that you put this in the soil. And so the types of plants that I got, these are called carnivorous plants. And so that means that they will eat, like sometimes you can put ants in there once they grow, or you can put little crickets in there once they grow. But these are types of plants that eat meat. And again, you just want to make sure that you get it down in the dirt. The seed is down in there. And now you can put some decorations on top. So I went out and got a pine cone. I just got a little rock that can go in here. And then I also went ahead and grabbed some moss to put in there. So these are all things that would be okay in high humidity. Now, I probably should have got a bigger jar, but you can always do that, right? So whatever you want to put in your terrarium, make sure you have the correct size jar for it, because this one, again, is going to be closed. Now, I went ahead and did an open terrarium just to show you. So this is a picture of an open terrarium, and all that means is it's not going to have a top on it. It's going to be what it says. It's going to be open. So I went ahead and got some succulents. I got some cacti. I got a little bit of an air plant. And then for my decorations, I went and I found some rocks, and then I actually found this empty little shell. And so when you have your open terrarium and you have your closed terrarium, you water them differently. So because your closed terrarium is going to have a top on it, that means that it's going to have higher humidity. So something that you would use is this little dropper, or again, you could use a spoon. And you want to start off maybe watering it like every 2 weeks. And so again, at the bottom, if you see that there's water that's getting in the rocks and it's sitting there, that's not a good thing. That means that it's too much water that is being in there. So maybe you should switch to maybe watering every 3 weeks. And again, only use this little dropper so you're not putting too much water into your terrarium. Now, with an open, it's a little bit different, right? Because it's receiving more air. So I would still maybe start off watering it every 2 weeks. And then you can look at the bottom to see if it's too much water, or if your plants and your leaves are kind of starting to droop over and wilt, then you know that maybe you need to add a little bit more water. So just like with taking care of anything, you kind of have to figure out which works best for you. And so you would just take this and you would squirt a little bit of water evenly. And I would do the same thing on my open, and you just want to make sure that those roots have enough water. So it'll be kind of trial and error when you're first starting off. All right, so one thing I want to mention is about orchids and air plants. So this air plant that we have in the terrarium, one of the things that you can do is once a week, you're going to take it out of the terrarium and you're going to soak it in water for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're going to take it out. All right, so you're going to take it out, and one of the things that you can do is you can place it on a paper towel for it to dry, and it may take like 1 to 2 hours, or you can even hold it upside down, and that will help it to dry as well. Still probably 1 to 2 hours, and then after you do that, you're just going to place it and make sure that you put your roots back into the soil, and that's all you need to do for air plants to take care of them. Now, we have our closed terrarium done and we have our open terrarium done. So I want to talk a little bit about sunlight. So with both of these, again, it's going to be kind of touch and go so you can see what works best for you. But most of the time, they're going to need to be near a window, kind of in indirect sunlight. And then what you can do is if your plants start to turn brown or they seem like they're starting to wilt over, then that's probably too much sunlight for that plant and you want to move it a little bit further away. So again, you're just going to have to figure out what is going to work best for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope You're going to try out one of these terrestrial ecosystems in the jar, either the open or the closed. If you guys have any questions, make sure that you go and you email raven.wilson@cp1.hctx.net. All right, see you guys later.